I realize I'm a little bit late to the party on this one, but today we're going to talk about the premium Tier 8 American cruiser USS Tulsa, which is the reward for the ongoing June 2023 campaign. And in the June 2023 update for World of Warships Legends, not one, but three premium American cruisers debuted. You could almost say a small fleet of them came to the game. They were, of course, the Salem at Tier 8, the Tulsa at Tier 8, and the San Diego at Tier 7. If I were personally going to rank these cruisers in order from most desirable to least desirable, it would be 1, Salem, 2, Tulsa, and 3, San Diego. For reasons I've already discussed in previous videos, I've covered both ships, if you want to take a look at that. Tulsa, though, it's an interesting case because on the one hand, I'm not sure what advantage this really gives you over something like, say, the Buffalo, the Tech Tree Tier 8 cruiser, or even the Wichita or Baltimore at Tier 7, or of course the Salem or Des Moines at Tier 8. This ship is a little bit unusual, and we'll get into why as we run down the statistics. To begin with, the Tulsa has 42,700 hit points, which is just fine, but the armor plating is 27 millimeters everywhere, as you can see here on this armor viewer, meaning it can be overmatched by 16-inch or 406mm guns or larger, and that's pretty much all you're going to see at tiers 7, 8, and Legendary, except for odd cases out, like, say, the Odin over there, which has 305mm guns. We can, of course, angle against that, and anything with 380mm guns or 15-inch guns we can angle against, but 16-inch guns will simply ignore our armor, and likewise, HE from heavy cruisers and even some light cruisers will simply penetrate right through the armor, so we're quite farmable as well. Not exactly the most well-armored cruiser known to man. The Citadel, of course, is that typical American cruiser Citadel that's got the sort of step platform shape, where the Citadel is well beneath the waterline and virtually inaccessible beneath the turrets, but in the middle of the ship it comes out over the waterline, and if it gets hit there, it can get dev-struck. Of course, the shells can also overpen because it's a rather narrow ship like most American cruisers, so I suspect that sometimes people will get overpens when they do hit the Citadel on this Tulsa, and then they'll get irritated and think they're maybe firing at a Wichita. But rest assured, this thing can get dev-struck from the Citadel at practically any angle by anything with 16-inch guns, so you do have to play it carefully. You want to use it behind islands whenever possible, for example, and just generally try to keep yourself safe and angled away. You can mitigate quite a lot of damage if you do angle away. Shells will still penetrate the soft parts of your armor scheme, but they can bounce against the Citadel belt and things like that, although it is a little bit of a toss-up. As for the guns, this is where we sort of get into the part where I don't understand the ship too much, or I fail to see the upside here, because the Salem only has, or rather, sorry, the Tulsa only has 6 guns. They are concentrated in 3 double turrets, 2 on the front, 1 on the rear. They are 203mm guns, or 8-inch guns, so the standard heavy cruiser size. With this build, which is the Beepley build, although I am running the Popeye Commander guys, you might be able to hear his voice there in the background. And speaking of the Popeye Commander guys, I think the voiceover is, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. The lines that Popeye says sound a lot like Popeye, but I think the iconic laugh, let's just say, leaves a little bit to be desired. Anyway, these are 8-inch heavy cruiser guns. They have a range of 16.1 km on this build, a reload time of 5.2 seconds, so they're sort of like those auto-loading 8-inch guns. On, for example, the Wichita, it's a very high rate of fire for guns of this size. Des Moines also has the same size, so does Salem, and their guns reload just about as quick, except there are 3 more of them, so there is that. Turret traverse time, like on all American cruisers, is rather slow, even when you build for it on your commander with the Ingenious skill. It's 26.9 seconds, so the turrets do take a little while to get on target. Maximum HE shell damage is 3k with a 14% fire chance. Not bad, but not really blowing anything out of the water. And the maximum AP shell damage is 5,300. These are, as far as I can tell, the typical super heavy American cruiser AP with the improved pen angles. You'll see against the broadside of, I think, a Salem at some point in this game, we're able to score a lot of damage and get some citadels. You don't want to be giving this thing broadside, just as you don't want to give things like the Salem or the Des Moines broadside either. If you're in a cruiser, you will get wrecked. Even if you're thinking to yourself, oh, well, this only has 6 guns. Yeah, it does, but they are 6 guns that can easily penetrate your citadel, and they'll do 5,300 damage every time they do. They also, if you notice, are not the most accurate cruiser guns known to man. This ship might benefit from speccing into accuracy a little bit. I haven't done that, but we're still able to do a healthy amount of damage despite the sometimes questionable dispersion. The AA defense doesn't seem to be winning any awards either. It's got an overall aggregate rating of 77, which I know is basically a meaningless number, but it's the mid-range 3.5 kilometer AA that actually does damage on this thing, 191 per second, and I don't think those numbers are especially impressive. This thing doesn't seem to be capable of shooting down planes left and right like some of the other American cruisers. The speed, though, with this build is pretty good, although I think some of my commander skills are influencing it. I've got a top speed of 36 knots, turning circle radius of 750 meters, and a pretty bad rudder shift of 9.4 seconds, so the thing is not all that agile, although you could probably make it agile if you want to sacrifice concealment mod and instead go with steering gears. Personally, I think that's a foolish choice. You should probably be speccing into concealment on the majority of your cruisers. Concealment is the cardinal value for especially the smaller class of ships in this game, like destroyers and cruisers. They thrive on concealment rather than on things like agility. And the concealment itself, by the way, with this Beepley build is excellent. It's 9.7 kilometers by sea. If you don't have Beepley, you're looking somewhere around the very low 10 km range, maybe 10.1, 10.2, and that's still quite fantastic. There, by the way, you see the AP in effect against the Seattle. He was slightly angled to us, but doesn't matter. We're able to tag his citadel very easily, and our teammates are able to take him out for us. As for the Salem's, or rather the Tulsa, I keep doing that, the Tulsa's consumable suite, it's got 3 different consumables. The sonar, which is actually quite good. It's got a 4.7 kilometer detection range of ships, which I think is a little bit higher than the standard, and it lasts for 98 seconds. The radar is that good American cruiser radar. It's got a 9 kilometer range and a 35-second duration, which, you know, nice to have a little bit longer. And then the heal is nothing special. It's the typical cruiser heal, lasts for 28 seconds, restores 213 HP, not blowing anything out of the water, but it'll certainly help you out if you make a couple of mistakes. So, as far as the Tulsa goes, I think there are better options out there. Obviously, the Salem is much more capable than this ship. The Des Moines at legendary tier is better. I'd say even the Buffalo might be easier to use just because it has more guns. They have a slower reload, yes, but you're putting a lot more shells down range, and it's probably easier to deal damage over time with the largest number of guns. For the Tulsa, well, since you only have 6 guns, you really do have to be around for the full game to get the full effect. But it's not like these are bad guns or anything. You can certainly do damage with them. I just don't really see what you trade in return for having 6 guns, because all the other American cruisers, they've got at least 9, right? You know, we've got the Salem with 9. We've got Wichita and Baltimore tier lower with 9 guns. We've got Des Moines at legendary tier with 9. Buffalo, I think, has 12, maybe. It's got more than 9. This American cruiser just happens to have the fewest amount of guns out of any. And it's not like they're super pinpoint accurate, as you can see there. It's not like they've got any sort of special characteristics over the other American guns. The HE doesn't hit like that much better. The AP is pretty similar to all the rest of the competition. It just has 6 of them. And what does it get in return? I really couldn't tell you. I have no idea. But that's not to say it's a bad cruiser. It's a good one. Anything with radar like this is very good. Of course, this thing is effective at spotting destroyers and taking them down. It can have a little bit of trouble if you get those higher HP destroyers, something like the Elbing or the Palo Emilio. You've only got 6 guns, so if you radar one of those things and start shooting at it, you might be able to take it out in the span of your radar duration if you're landing all your shells, which you probably won't be because the destroyer will be maneuvering and going fast, so some of the shells are going to hit the water rather than the hull of the ship and not do any damage, and you're only firing 6 of them to begin with, so that's not a lot of shit being thrown at the wall. Not a lot of it is necessarily going to stick. Nevertheless, the radar is a very powerful consumable, lots of utility for your team, even if you're maybe not able to take out the destroyer in the duration of the radar consumable. Hopefully you've got teammates nearby that can assist you and take the destroyer out. But I just can't help but feel like there are maybe better choices to take out at Tier 8, or even going to Legendary Tier or Tier 7, there are better choices. This is not to say you shouldn't pursue the ship. I think it's a decent ship at Tier 8 for the campaign. I wouldn't call it bad by any stretch of the imagination. I would just say this is sort of like a mid-level ship. It's not massively overpowered. I don't think anybody's going to be accusing it of that, nor is it massively strong. It's just sort of middle of the road, and maybe that's okay. In terms of a campaign ship, maybe we don't want something that's massively overpowered and breaks the game. Having something that is well balanced and even-handed, better, I think, overall for the health of the game, but maybe not necessarily better if you're looking to go out there and be as effective as humanly possible. If you want to do that, probably the Salem is a better choice, but you don't have any of the high-tier premium American cruisers and you don't plan on being able to get the Salem anytime soon, or get the Tulsa at Tier 7, which honestly I don't recommend you get, then this ship, as the reward for the campaign, is not a bad choice. Although I'd say, in the end of things, it's average. It plays like pretty much every other American cruiser at the higher tiers. Nothing dissimilar from Baltimore or Buffalo or Salem. Sort of the exact same play style, the same thing that you're used to, and it just sort of starts to feel like with all these cruisers together, there's a lot of variety on a surface level, but not a lot of difference on a gameplay level. This thing just isn't unique or different enough, except for the fact that it's got 6 guns, whereas the rest of the American cruisers have more than that. And it's not clear what you get for having so few guns on this ship. It doesn't seem like you get anything really of benefit. Nevertheless, I wouldn't not recommend this ship, honestly. I think the campaigns are just about the best value you can get in this game. You pay about $10 for the Admiralty backing, then you grind the campaign, you get a lot of rewards outside of the premium ship, and then at the very end you get a high-tier premium ship that is only presumably going to be available for the campaign. There are no guarantees that campaign ships will ever come back, although sometimes they do, so I'd go ahead and buy the Admiralty backing for this campaign and grind it out. It's certainly not bad. Can be a fun cruiser to play, and honestly, because of the lack of guns and the lack of overall firepower, I'd say it's sort of not really a challenge, but you have to work more than you work in some of the other cruisers that simply have more guns. And that can be an enjoyable experience for some people, but other people might hate that. So, yeah, if you're not really sold on sort of a mid level ship, maybe this isn't the one for you. This game that I showed you that's just ended now has sort of been like an average game with this thing. And I just kind of wanted to show you what the average experience would be like. So I hope that helps you out. If so, give the video a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.